We're going to go live. Do you have your books?
I have mine.
Oh, I didn't bring the photocopies, but you should have one here, actually. You might get to use a book, Stuart.
If you tell me where it is, I'll run get it.
They're in my office. I can get it.
Oh, I'll go get some.
Hang on. Hang on, Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Are they in English too?
Trying to talk to you. No, I just want to tell you where so you don't rummage.
Okay.
When you go into my office on the right, on the shelf, one of the first piles there, you'll see a stack of the photocopies.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. But here you go, Stuart. You can have this one.
Ah, Schottenstein.
That's the one. All right, so it's salad for lunch today? Fruit and salad. Okay, and a drink. So hello to anybody who is online or for the last 10 seconds has been waiting for us to get started. I'm Rabbi Tobin. I have a couple people here in the room with me, and we are doing chapter 3 of Sanhedrin in our Talmud study. We are on the last word, literally the exact last word of page 26b. It's right over there, it's fine. 26b, last word. In the Schottenstein, it would be 26b4, for those of you who are following in the Art Scroll Schottenstein. Okay. So, there's a whole new topic that's showing up today. It's a very important concept in the Talmud. Hello, Ron, right there's your best shot. You can use the real book if you want.
Okay.
All right, let's see what we're going to do about that glare from that window. Well, it got one window or the other, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so an aid zomem.
Okay. Well, I use the pamphlet when you can do the real thing.
Well, no, this is all. What's that mean?
Okay, and the plural would be adim zomamim. Okay, so, or adim zomamim, if you wanted to do some kind of like really good Hebrew there. So adim zomamim, you have the concept of witnesses who are going to be disqualified not because of their profession, which is what the Mishnah was talking about from the beginning of our study together, but because of something that they did in the course of their testimony, which renders them now not believable anymore. So this is a very specific category, Eid Zomem, and it shows up all over the place in the Talmud.
I'm sorry. I came late and I missed the definition.
I haven't defined it yet. You actually haven't missed a thing.
You came just on time.
We're on page 27 now, right?
26
The
before.
last word of 26b4, itmar, and then we'll be on 27. But I'm prefacing this because what we're about to dive into presumes knowledge that I'm presuming you don't have. So you need to know what an Eid Zomem. Eid Zomem is a very, very specific manner of disqualifying a witness, and it goes like this. Stewart testifies on a document, that's the simplest case, that on the 4th of Nisan, he saw Bonnie purchase from Ron 5 boxes of matzahs for the price of 5 shekels. Stewart and his friend sign the document together that this transaction took place in West Orange on the 4th of Nisan in the year 5779. Okay? Or let's do it last year, 5778. So it's time to enforce the document or something. Ron says you never gave him the money. Okay, Stewart has signed a document that you did give him the money. This should be an open and shut case. Ron brings two witnesses who saw Stuart and Reuven studying Torah in Jerusalem on the 4th of Nisan
My
last year.
parents would be very proud.
Yes, well, I'm not going to put you in Atlantic City because I don't want to put other issues into my scenario. I want this, you were studying Torah in Jerusalem on the 4th of Nisan, 5778. What does that mean about the testimony?
It can't be in two places
It
at once.
simply can't be true because he was not there. That is the exact case of Eid Zomem. Eid Zomem does not mean anything other than that. Two witnesses have been brought forward to disqualify a witness or a pair of witnesses because they were not there. Okay? Now, in that case, what conclusions do we draw about the witnesses who lied?
They're unreliable.
They are complete liars. There's absolutely no way in which they could have thought that they were doing anything other than lying.
But also, aren't they then responsible for the payment? Because if you falsely accuse someone,
Yes, there's another issue that if you falsely swear in a way that causes somebody to have a liability, that your punishment is to receive that liability. So if it's money, it's money. If it's whipping, it's whipping. And if it's death, it's death. Okay, everyone understand what an Eid Zomem is?
Right.
Now,
nowadays with the phones and Easy Pass, it's a lot easier. and
there's a lot of testimony that
that's
we can...
technology and not people. Mm-hmm.
In Torah law, if I have two people who say that they saw you in Jerusalem studying Torah, and you bring your Google logs
Right.
about where your phone has been tracked at all these times, and here's a picture that has a location marker within it that says I was there at that time, and here's a picture of me with those people at that time, and here's my Facebook page that I uploaded in that place at that time. None of that matters.
Oh,
You have two witnesses testifying that they saw you in Jerusalem studying Torah. Those two witnesses will be believed over any electronic fingerprint that you leave.
But we assume the witnesses, you can have the witnesses prove that it was Ron and now not his twin brother or some other lookalike.
So that's the Beit Din's job. The Beit Din's job is to determine that they're in fact testifying about Ron. But if everything holds up in their testimony, it doesn't matter how much electronic proof he brings. The Torah says, Al pi shnayim yakum davar. On the basis of two people, it is established. So two people are more believable than any computer record. Two people are more believable than any DNA evidence. Two people are more believable than 100 people. Once two people establish something, the only way to overturn that is to prove that they are Eidim Zomemim. Right? That's how you get rid of them. They couldn't possibly have seen it. Now, if they're proven to be, Eid Sheker, they're a liar or something like that, then you go ahead. I would hope that in our day, that a Beit Din would take into account all the things that I'm saying before establishing the witnesses as having proven the case. Right? I mean,
There are also a lot of studies saying that witnesses really aren't that reliable when it comes to court cases.
the Torah disagrees about eyewitness testimony. I know there's psychological studies and social research that says, this the classic case in Criminology 101 or whatever is the professor starts the opening lecture and has staged a mugging, right? And somebody comes running in, smashes the professor onto the ground, grabs something off the desk and runs out. The professor immediately distributes pieces of paper with questions. What did you see? Don't talk to anybody in the room. Write down what you saw exactly. What time was it? How long did it last? Where did they come from? Where did they go? What were they wearing? Was it male? Was it female? Was it of a certain race or gender? All the things that you would do. What did they do? And then you come out And you realize there's tremendous disparity
Right.
in any room full of people about what they saw.
Right.
And the policeman's job, the investigator's job, is to try and figure out, is there a pattern of consensus from the witnesses that we would say, it looks like most people saw a white male between 5'8" and 5'10" wearing a green shirt, right? Or is that not? You know, and how far down does it not work? So we know eyewitness testimony, but the Torah is al pi shnaim yakum davar, and the Beit Din has to make sure that those shnaim, those two, have been warned very seriously about the what happens to them if they commit perjury. And they have to ask them extreme questions to get them right, to be absolutely sure that these are the things they saw, that they're not guessing, it's not based on hearsay, right? The rules for their testimony are very strict, but at the end of the day, two people establishes something according to Torah law. Okay, so I have two people who came, and they proved that we have Eidim Zomamim on this document. The document is uprooted, it is not enforced. Okay, that's the background. Types of documents where this takes place most often would be a ketubah, a wedding document, right? If two witnesses signed on the document, and you can prove they weren't at the wedding, right? And then, therefore, the woman cannot collect her ketubah from the husband when he divorces her. Maybe he doesn't even have to divorce her, because she can't prove he's married. All right, Itmar. It has been stated, with all of that background, none of those are the cases that we're looking at. It's just the scenario of Eid Zomem that we're dealing with, and you need to really have cold. Okay, Itmar, 27a, Eid Zomem. You have found an Eid Zomem in your case. Abaye Amar, Lemafrehu Nifsal, Verava Amar, Mehechan Lahaba Hu Nifsal. Abaye and Rabbah are classic disputants in the Talmud. They're slightly later generation Amoraim, heads of their yeshivas, and they often have differences of opinion. What's interesting is that in the editorial hand of the Talmud, when their disputes are presented, they are very frequently resolved as if they didn't have a difference of agreement. So Abaye and Rava say it's A or it's B. And then you're going to make a claim that, you know what, Abaye and Rava really didn't disagree. They both agreed on A. But the reason that Rava said B here was for some other thing. But if it weren't that thing, he actually agrees with Abaye all along. That's what the editor tends to do with Rava and Abaye, and that's what happens here. So we're going to have to keep a few things in our head. All right? So, first, Abaye, what does he say?
He is disqualified retroactively from the moment he testified.
Okay. So he is not a kosher witness. I'm going to say ever since he did that. Ever since he did that. Now remember, in my scenario, what did I say? When did this happen?
Year ago.
Last Nissan. Okay? Now, let's say Stuart makes his living as what we would call today a notary. He's a professional witness. He sits in his stall in the market. People come by, and they do kinyan in front of him all the time. They acquire the terms of a deal. They sell things back and forth, and they put a star in front of him, and he signs them, and off they go. And Stuart has signed 100 documents as a witness since last Nissan. Abaye is going to say every single one of those documents, he's not a kosher witness. Ever since he did that. Even if every subsequent document he actually is telling the truth. Doesn't matter. He was an Eid Zomem, this specific kind of contradicted witness. Last Nissan, he lied about being there. He wasn't there. He couldn't possibly have been there. I have two witnesses proving that he was in Jerusalem studying Torah at that time. And every document ever since then gets uprooted. That's pretty extreme. That's going to hurt a lot of people. What does Rava say? Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna get a reason for Abaye. So Amar Abaye Amar Mafrehu Nifsal. Abaye says he's disqualified ever since. Me'idna de'ashid Rashahu, because he's a Rasha. He's an evil guy. And the Torah says, V'hatorah amra al tashet yadecha im Rasha. And actually, if you look at footnote 4, you'll see the end of the verse. Al tashet yadecha im Rasha lihiot eid Hamas. The perfect verse. Do not lift your hand with an evil person to be a violent witness or a harmful witness. Okay? So you're not allowed to testify with somebody who's a Rasha. Or is it you're not allowed to testify with someone who's a Rasha when they're causing harm? So those would be two different ways to look at that. Across the board in this sugya, we're going to be saying you're just not allowed to sign with a Rasha if he's a Rasha. So Abaye says he proved himself to be a Rasha, and from then on he's in the category of Rasha, and he can never be a witness from then on because he's a Rasha. How many times do I have to say it? Abaye would say. Rav Amar mikan lahaba hu nifsal. No. From this moment, now think about it. What moment? So when did he lie on a document?
A year ago.
Nisan 4/57/78. Okay, and today, let's say today is Adar 2/26/57/79. That's today. This is the day that the witnesses were brought into court to prove that he's an Eid Zomem. For Rava, this is the moment he becomes a Rasha. For Abaye, this is the moment he made himself a Rasha. Did he make himself a Rasha, or did we prove him to be a Rasha at this moment? At which point did he become a Rasha?
It was when you proved him to be.
So that's Rava.
That's Rava.
So
Even though his actions were done a year ago,
right.
it's still, they're still saying, all his decisions are okay because we were unaware that he was a Rasha. So it's only when we know he's a Rasha.
Almost. It's not that we were unaware he was a Rasha. He's not a Rasha until we say he's a Rasha.
Right, I got it.
Right?
Got it, yeah. Remember that from before.
Okay, Rasha is something established by a Beit Din.
We had a
Okay?
similar thing.
We did have a similar thing where the court had to declare him unfit.
Right.
Right? So we're running that same idea is now pushed forward into Eid Zomem.
Same
Very good.
Same logic.
Okay? Now, what's he going to say? So, Rava Amar Mikan Lahaba Hu Nifsal, Eid Zomem Chidushu, because being an Eid Zomem is a creation, a chidush. It's a novelty. It doesn't exist until it exists. Okay, it's a chidush. My chazit samchatahane, smochahane. Now, the challengers can come and say, wait, now why do you rely on these? Rely on those. What does that mean? That's classic Gemara shorthand. Why should you rely on the two witnesses who come and make somebody an Eid Zomem? Why rely on these two witnesses? Why not rely on these? Because the Eid Zomem is going to say, oh, sure, I was there. That's why I signed it. What if you have two witnesses on the ketubah, and the other two witnesses have come to prove that the two witnesses on the ketubah were both studying? Stuart and the other witness were studying together in Jerusalem. We saw them. So you have two against two. The system is built that the accusing two are believed, and the defending two on the document are not believed. All right, so the Gemara says, wait a minute, why are you believing them? Why don't you believe them? Which is an endless circle, because then you could bring two against two, and then you bring another two against those two, and you bring another two against those two, and how many times do you
That's what we say. When I do that.
No, you can appoint shaliach up to 99 shlichim for the delivery of a get. Yes. All right. Smochahani. Ein lecha bo ela mishat chidusho ve'elach. And the answer is, you only apply Rava's rule You only apply that he's a Russia from the time that he was established to be a liar and onward, and that's it. That's the answer. So it's not really an answer to the believe these two. That doesn't really, it's not tight logic. That objection is raised, it's not really dealt with, and it's just deal with it from the second there's a chidush here, we go forward. But, Ika Amre is the hand of the editor. The editor comes in and says, some people say, so the editor brought a Rava Abaye thing, and now he brings some people say about Rava and Abaye, meaning subsequently in the yeshiva in Babylonia during Talmudic times, after Rava and Abaye, there was another study of their rulings, and this is how they interpreted it. Rava name Abaye savirale. Rava and Abaye completely agreed with each other. That the person, and what does that mean? If Rava is acknowledging Abaye, it means Rava is saying, well, yeah, sure, the guy is not kosher from the time he did this bad thing. Sure, that's technically correct. However, umaitam kamar mikan lahaba. Why, in this case, did Rava say, I'm not going to enforce it that way. I'm just going to say from now on he's a Rasha. And the answer is mishum psida delikuchos, the loss of acquiring. In other words, because of all the loss involved in the canceled deals. Remember, he signed 100 documents this last year. Mm-hmm. And all those documents are now going to be undone. What if they're all about produce? The produce has been eaten. It's gone. Right? And now the people who ate it don't need to pay the guy who they sold it to in their installments over time because all the documents are uprooted and they can ignore the billables. Right? And people are going to lose their livelihood if you do this with this guy. A whole year's worth of documents. Women aren't married. Now what? All kinds of things could be going on, and it's very bad. So mishum psida likochot, he said, but we're not going to do it because of this very practical concern. So yes, he's a Russia ever since then, but no, not really, for the sake of all these documents, which were entered into presumably in goodwill and earnestly, and we're not going to go back and make this big mess. Now, my benaihu. So if Rava really agrees with Abaye, then what are they arguing about? Ika benaihu, there is between them de asahidu be tre bechad, in the case where two witnesses testify against one. Okay, so you have, what did I say? Your witnesses were Stuart and Reuven. Okay? And versus two witnesses. Okay? That is the case where Rava would say he's worried about the loss of money. Okay, all the loss of money. That's the case where his logic works. Rava acknowledges to Abaye, they're not kosher ever since, but he's going to apply this concept of because of loss of money, we're not uprooting all the documents ever since, we're going to let this case be one. They're proven as Edim Zomamim on this case, but we're not doing anything else, but from now on we're not going to take him as a witness. That's where it's Stuart and Reuven versus two witnesses. Okay, so it's 2 versus 2. However, iname, or alternate, but not where it's 1. But not if it's just Stuart versus 2. Okay? So, Stuart and Reuven are on the document. Somebody brings 2 witnesses to prove that Stuart was not in Jerusalem. Reuven's still kosher. But this one's not. In that case, Rava will not apply this rule of loss of money. Rava will go with his agreement. Stuart's no good ever since. Right? But if it's Stuart and Reuven as a pair, he's going to say, no, we're not uprooting all that stuff. So he's saying that you can get rid of one. He's clearly a Russia, and now all the rules applied to him. That's what the Gemara is saying. Doesn't give a real good reason why that would be so much better, but defaslin hu begazlanut. So if so, then the second set should disqualify him because of robbery. So starting to accuse him of what Ron accused him of right away. By lying in this case, you're really stealing from somebody, right? By making them pay something that they don't owe. And in each of these situations, the law that credits the second witness is not a chidush, okay? So if there's only one person, it's not a chidush to make him, to make them zomamin. He's just a liar. He's just a thief. So the logic on this is that Abaye says it's a chidush, and because it's a chidush from this moment, it's a novelty from this moment, the Gemara comes and says that only means when you're discrediting both of the witnesses. Both witnesses are being created as a team of liars. Right, that is what's being established now, and that's when when Rava says we might lose too much money, and we're not going to retroactively. But if it's only one guy, it's not a chidush.
Because the documents are still good because the other witness is still kosher?
So you got one guy who's a liar, and you can prove him to be a liar, and it's not a chidush. If he was a liar, he was a liar. But the team didn't exist as a team of liars until you declared them to be a team of liars. So one guy's a liar from the Torah, he's a thief from the Torah, he's a bad guy from the Torah, he's gone all the way backwards. But a team of people, ironically, which you might think two is worse than one, we would certainly throw them out all the way back, he's going to say no. We're creating them as a disqualified team. That's a new thing, that's a chidush, and that's when Rava would say only from now on are they not credited as Eidim Zomamim. It's not great logic. Rashi and the Tosafot go on for a lot on this, and the Rishonim after the Tosafot go on for a long time on this, and they create scenarios that make this all make sense. This is pretty terse stuff. There's not a lot of words to help us out here, but that's what they're saying. That's what the words say. Okay?
So all those poor people, those 100 or whatever they still going to have the loss then, or their documents are still good?
There's one case before us, and that case, the document is being thrown out either way. The question is, do we go back and say everything else that these two guys signed will also not be good? Or is everything that this one guy signed maybe not going to be good? Mm-hmm. And Rava and Abaye have a difference of opinion about that.
And it's not resolved.
Right. The one guy, they're going to both go back and say not kosher ever since. But the two guys, Rava is going to say that's a chidush, according to the Gemara. Rava didn't say that. The Gemara says he said that. Mm-hmm. Right? When it comes at the end. Here. Okay. All right. Now, here's some even later rulings. So this was evidently an active conversation in the later levels of Talmud. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti. Yirmiyah Midifti said, Avad Rav Papi uvda kavate de Rava. Rav Papi ruled in an actual case according to Rava. So we had a Beit Din. This case came forward. Rav Papi ruled according to Rava. And what did he say? Mar bar Rav Ashi Amar. And one guy, the son of Rav Ashi, said, Hilchata kavate de Abaye. But the halacha goes with Abaye. How can you rule according to Rava? And the Gemara concludes with the following ruling. V'hilchaka kavate de Abaye, but ya'al kagam. And the halacha follows Abaye in the disputes with Rava on 6 disputes that we remember with the words ya'al kagam. So one begins with a yud, one begins with an ayin, one begins with a lamed, one begins with a kuf, one begins with a gimel, and one begins with a mem. Okay? And we've seen this before, right? There's a mnemonic, there's going to be some letters, and now we're going to have to go through all the cases. All right? So. So what are we going to do?
Sometimes they need, is there any meaning to Ya'al
No.
Kagam?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
It's just an acronym.
Yeah.
It's like
For the Ketubah witnesses, excuse me, for delivering the get, Rabbi Yazikov many times tries to make a word.
yeah, out of the siman at the end, it'll be like ahava or something.
So it's always fun to try to say what the word is and then how it relates to marriage.
Okay, so it's going to be Ya'al. It's Pagam. Those are the 6. Okay. What was I going to say? No, I forgot. Okay. Now, Mumar Ochel Nevelot LeTeavon Divrei Hakol Pasul. So here's another Abaye Rava. As far as a renegade who eats unslaughtered meat for gratification, all agree he is disqualified from testifying. So, what is he eating? Nevelot. A nevela doesn't mean it's alive. This word unslaughtered, we seem to think that it means alive. A nevela means it didn't die through kosher slaughter. Right? It could be roadkill, or it could be McDonald's. Jewishly, McDonald's and roadkill are the exact same thing. All right? There's no difference, from the kashrut standpoint. All right, all agree that he is disqualified. So he eats it because he likes it. Right? So, by the way, nevelot is not treifot. What is treif? It's a big category, but really we mean pork. Right? If you can say treif, it's something that the animal is treif. It also means torn, and it can mean killed by a beast, killed by an animal. It is torn. Treifa is literally what the word means. Nivela is usually something that died in an off manner, but treifa would include by a beast or a completely not kosher animal. All right, so somebody who's eating non-kosher beef because he likes it. All agree. Now, lehachis, right? Now, if he does it to anger the Torah, Abaye Amar Pasul, he's disqualified. Rava Amar Kasher, he's still eligible. So that's something that they disagree on. So in here, it's in defiance of the Torah. Lachis. So in the case of B'tei Avon, if it's for pleasure, they agree that he's not kosher. But if he does it, you ever see somebody who does something just to tick you off? Right?
My students.
They're not at all. They're not at. I see, and I'm thinking teenagers, but that's where I am in life. They are not at all invested in the action that they are doing. That action does not bring them any inherent pleasure. If you were not there, they would not be doing that action. If you did not exist, they would not be doing that action. Instead, what they are doing is they are doing that action to tick you off specifically because they know it will bother you. So if somebody is doing it that way for the Torah, that's an interesting question. I would think that's more of a rasha. But Rava lets him off the hook. So Rava's more concerned about if it's B'tei Avon. Why? I guess because B'tei Avon is this natural thing. Like, that may not be curable. Right? It's the guy who has a desire towards something that is forbidden and bad, and those people, we've seen in other cases, are less likely to be able to do tshuva, right? Because they're drawn to it, right? So they're drawn to this treif. They're drawn to this nevela, right? They just can't live without it. They just need bacon on everything, right? So that's a different kind of a case, as opposed to somebody who just does it maybe even in a moment, like to defy God, right? I'm God, to hell with this and you, and grab it and you eat it to make that point. That may not be something that makes you inherently unqualified. It makes you a jerk in that moment. It might just be a thing you did.
So one tends to be when we continue to do it all the time, whereas the other one is just maybe he had a bad day, and he's just, things.
Lahachis,
This didn't happen.
right?
Already.
I mean, anybody who's raised kids has had the kid who just, like, let me take another thing. I've had kids smash their own property, right? Or throw an electronic and it breaks.
He's so angry
They would never choose to not have that electronic. This electronic is something that is like more important than life to them half the time, right?
Right.
But they do it right?
Seen it with the phone.
Right, with the phone, and just throw the phone, or give me the phone. I won't give you the phone. Give me the phone, and then there it goes against the wall, right? Not because they don't want the phone, but they want. This is a provocative action.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that must be what Rava is thinking, that people who are doing lehachis doesn't necessarily invalidate them completely, which is funny because it's against the Torah. We would have thought it's worse.
Yeah, initially.
Look, when I'm with families who are bereaved, if it's a family that had faith going into the bereavement, then there's a focal point for their anger, right? They can be mad at God.
Yeah.
Somebody who didn't believe to God going in is now going to be mad about the idea of God, right? Like, how dare you talk to me about God? I knew there was no God, and this just proves it. As opposed to somebody who's like, they believed in God deeply, and they've been doing their Misha Berachs, and they've been saying their prayers, and the person didn't get better, and they died, and how dare you, right? Now, that person might say terrible things to God in their bereavement. And what I like to say to them is, God can take it. Right? Give him your worst. Like, just do it. Say it, scream it, write it, pray it, feel it, whatever. God can take it. Whatever you've got going on right now, God can take it. Right? So that might be where Rava is on this thing. It's not like it's a rejection of everything.
It's better to do it to God than to your family and friends.
I would
'Cause
think
that's
so.
Really, the problem.
All right. So let's see the grounds for these opinions. Abaye Amar Pasul Dahavale Rasha. So this is Abaye. He's a Rasha. Remember we had him as a Rasha before? He's a Rasha now. Abaye is very black and white. V'Rachman Amar Al Tashet Rasha. Right? You don't raise your hand with a Rasha as a witness again. So we've same verse, different day. Rava Amar Kasher, and Rava says he's kosher. Rasha de Hamas Ba'inan. The Torah verse only applies to a Rasha who is an Eid Hamas, which is a violent witness. Or in this case, it's being interpreted as theft. So only when the witness is lying in a case of theft, or you could translate it as violence, would the Torah apply. In which case, only in that case would the person become a Rasha, only in that case does the person become not kosher as a witness ever since. So if it's lahachis at the Torah, or to tick somebody off or something like that, that's not somebody who's a Rasha according to the Torah as a witness, and therefore you shouldn't have this strong feeling against him. The Gemara is going to challenge that. Yeah.
I'm just thinking here, maybe it could be that this person has something against that person particularly. So it isn't like he's going to be doing these things, but he really dislikes this person.
I might be lying on this document.
Trying to put it to him, to stick it to him.
I might have something against the parties in the document.
But in general, he's good. But he's just, this guy. Just
I'm a believable guy, but when Joe walks in the room, I can't help myself. I just hate Joe so much. I'm going to lie, cheat, and steal.
I can see that. I know some
You know,
personalities.
some people keep grudges like that.
Yeah, it's not good. I'm just saying, but
No,
we
but it
all
might be
wanna
a
try
reason.
Try to, but yeah.
All right, Meitvei.
You know,
So Meitvei is a technical term. It means I'm going to challenge that last teaching from a Mishnah age teaching. In this case, a Baraita. Sometimes it's a Mishnah. Sometimes it's a Baraita. Meitvei is a great challenge against an Amora, and all of these guys have been Amoraim. Abaye, Rava.
where are we again?
I'm on 27a, 2 on the right, Meitvei. They challenged.
The Gemara questions Rava's opinion.
Oh, okay, there. Yeah,
Okay?
I'm still above.
So, Meitvei.
Meitvei, okay.
They challenged. All right? What did they challenge? Al tashet Rasha aid, al tashet Hamas aid. They said the scripture says, do not place an evildoer as a witness, do not place a thief as a witness. You have these two verses, and they seem awfully similar. So they elu gazlanim u'mo'alim b'shvuot. These refer to robbers and those who abuse oaths. So according to this Baraita, these two phrases in the Torah, al tashet Rasha aid and al tashet Hamas aid, those two kinds of witnesses, are the two categories of thief and oath abusers. So the Gemara notes that the use of the plural oaths is my lav echad shavuat shav ve'echad shavuat mamon. Does this category not include both a single oath taken in vain and a single oath concerning monetary matters? In other words, the Baraita said Shavuot plural. So what are the cases within the Shavuot? One is an oath that's false, and one is a monetary lie. And the Gemara says, "Lo, no, that's not what Shavuot means. Shavuot means idi ve'idi Shavuat mamon." Both of the oaths in the plural Shavuot are money. My Shavuot. So why does it use plural? Shavuot de alma, because people talk about oaths in general as plurals. That's why. That didn't really help us very much. So it challenged Rava. Right? So Rava, remember, went back and he said the only time that the aid is going to be disqualified and called a rasha is if it's theft. Well, we challenged that because we had a Baraita that said it's not just theft. And the Baraita argued about the things it could be, but it's pretty clear it's not just theft. So Rava is left in a little bit of trouble here. Now we're going to go in and challenge Abaye and Meitvei. And they also challenged Abaye's opinion. Al tashet rasha aid, al tashet chamatz aid. These two cases, elu gazlanim u malve rabit, which this Braita says that these two are in fact robbers and those who lend on interest. All right, and tiyuvta de Abaye, tiyuvta, and they came to the conclusion that this Braita rejects Abaye. Effectively rejects Abaye. So Abaye's concept that what? What was Abaye saying? Mumar ochel nevelot le teavon divrei hakol pasul lahachis Abaye amar pasul and Rava amar kasher, and it's Abaye amar pasul dahave le rasha v'rachman amar al tashet rasha aid. Abaye's logic was the guy who is eating nevelot to anger the Torah only does it because he's not kosher because of a rasha, and the reason he's a rasha is the verse referred to him when it said don't lift up a rasha as a witness. It was referring to the guy who's eating the nevelot to anger the Torah. That's the claim. The rejection of that is we have a Baraita that quotes the verse and says it's about theft and those who loan at forbidden interest. And that's a tiyuvta against Abaye. In other words, you have to have triggered some other category. You're not automatically a rasha. And Abaye's big black and white system of you're a rasha, I'll never believe you again, it has more nuance to it in the Baraita. The Baraitas are clearly showing nuance, that it's not black and white. You're not just a rasha, and you can't walk away from them that way. Okay? So it's a tiyuvta to Abaye. It's a rejection of Abaye. 15 minutes. Okay, now we're going to look at the dispute between Abaye and Rava, and we're going to compare it to a dispute between two Tanaim. So Abaye and Rava are Amoraim, they're later scholars. We're going to go back to two guys from the age of the Mishnah and see a similar case, and we're going to try and see if the case in the Mishnah age dispute plays out between Rava and Abaye or not. Okay, here we go. Nema Katane. Should we say that it is just like the Tanaim? In other words, Abaye and Rava are just like the Tanaim, and here we go. Eid Zomen Pasul L'chol HaTorah Kula. A Zomen witness is disqualified for all matters in the Torah. Divrei Rabbi Meir, according to the words of Rabbi Meir, who we've seen many times. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Bamei Devarim Omerim. Rabbi Yossi says, wait a minute. Rabbi Meir is teaching that an Eid Zomen is now disqualified for every Torah case. What is that referring to, really? Bamei Devarim Hamarim. What is it ruling regarding? Huzam b'dinei nefashot. He was made a Zomem in a case that was a capital case. It was a death penalty court case. If a guy is willing to be a Zomem in a death penalty case, he should be believed for nothing. Right?
Right.
Some people might be willing to lie about the stolen pencil eraser, but not about murder. Right? This is going to be the logic of it. So if it's the biggest case ever, he's forbidden forever and ever. Shuzam b'dinei nefashot. Aval huzam b'dinei mamonot kasher l'dinei nefashot. But if he lied in a money case, he's still believable in a capital case. Okay? So that's Rabbi Yossi qualifying Rabbi Meir, and they're both Tanaim. So this is the authority of the Mishnah, even though it may or may not be actually in a Mishnah. Okay? Gemara is now going to try and suggest that this has something to do with Abaye and Rava's disagreement. Nema Abaye ka Rabbi Meir, Rava ka Rabbi Yossi. Let's say that Abaye is like Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir gave an absolute rule, you're a zomem, you can't be believed for anything ever. And Abaye seems to be kind of like that. He's a Rasha, and a Rasha should never be believed. Okay? So maybe Abaye is like Meir. The problem with that is Meir doesn't get the halacha. Rabbi Yossi gets the halacha. So, if that's the case, then we need to show that that Rava is like Rabbi Yossi as well. But let's see where it goes. Abaye ka Rabbi Meir. De'amar amrina mikula l'chumra. Abaye agrees with Meir, who maintains that everything that is a kula, that is a less stringent case, is suspected to commit a more grievous case. So mikula l'chumra. This is the domino theory of escalating sins. If the person does, breaks little things, he's more likely to break the big things, right? You can think about the logic this way. So I like to use this example. I'm in the ShopRite checkout, and I do something I don't usually do. I pay with cash, okay? And she gets my change wrong, and she gives me an extra 53 cents, right? Because nobody knows how to count change anymore. They just, okay? So she gives me an extra 53 cents, and I count it up, and I say, you gave me too much money. And I give her back the 53 cents, right? Now she's got to go get a manager, she's got to do what, and this, and the people behind me, and what are you doing, and people think I'm a nut, right? Slow the whole process down. Why don't I just put the money in my pocket? Good for me, I had a lucky day. It's like Monopoly, bank error in your favor, pocket the money. It's a bank error, you're supposed to give it back. Right? All right, so this is what's going on. So why would you do that? So that's based on the point of view that if it's only a little bit of money, just keep it, right? But if I found $530, she paid me $530 too much, does that change it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right? She's going to lose her job. Her till's going to be down $530. Right? I'm a good person. I'm not going to let her take that rap. You gave me too much money. Here's the money back. What it was $5.3 million. And I can take the money and run, and no one will ever find me. Right? So there's two ways to think about this. There are people who think the bigger the temptation, the more likely you are to sin, and therefore you are more believable at the lower end. Right? Every man has his price, and your price is up here, so down here you're still believable, but you'll be unethical up here. The other view is anybody who would lie over 53 cents is sure to lie to get the 5.3 million. Right? Like, if the price of your ethical standard is 53 cents, you're perfectly willing to steal 53 cents. This is the value of your clean slate on Yom Kippur. Right? Then we know you're stealing the 5.3 million. Those are two different ways to view the scale of theft and the believability of the person. So that's where we're going. So, Nema Abaye ka Rabbi Meir v'Rava ka Rabbi Yossi. So let's say Abaye is like Rabbi Meir, Rava ka Yossi. Abaye ka Rabbi Meir, de Amar Amrina Mikula l'chumra. Abaye agrees with Meir, who says that a less grievous sin suspects a person to a more grievous one. V'Rava da'amar Rabbi Yossi mechumla l'kumra amrinan. Rava is like Rabbi Yossi, who argued with Rabbi Meir in another place, that we say that a person with the more grievous sin is suspected to commit the less grievous sin. Okay? Mikula l'chumra lo amrinan, but does not agree that the person with the less grievous sin is likely to do the more grievous sin. Right? So they're just thinking in reverse as far as what tells you about the person.
Could you graph that, I'm trying to keep
Sure.
up with the different
Okay.
Tanya
So-
and Emma and
So Rabbi
who's
Meir
with each other and who's not. It's hard to follow.
and Rabbi Yossi. And what does Rabbi Meir believe? Rabbi Meir believes
He's
in...
black and white.
Well, let's go back. Let's actually read the Baraita. All right? All right, so Eid Zomen Pasul L'chol HaTorah. So the Eid Zomen is never, ever believed.
Right.
Right.
Okay? Rabbi Yossi says
Maybe
the Eid
sometimes.
Zomem is never, the Eid Zomen in a capital case is never, ever believed. You got that? Rabbi Yossi Omer, B'mei Devrim Arim, Shehuzam b'dinei nafshot, aval huzam b'dinei mamonot, kasher l'dinei nafashot. Okay? So, Rabbi Meir says an Eid Zomen on anything is not believed ever. Rabbi Yossi says an Eid Zomen in a capital case is not believed ever. Okay? So, now, is this going to be like Abaye?
So the point is, if we add another thing called monetary, for monetary, yes, and for the other one, no, for monetary.
Yeah,
Okay, so
As long-
that's the other.
as long as nobody got killed getting the money.
Right, in other words, if it's
Or
monetary,
injured.
you could believe because it's a lesser.
No,
Okay.
on monetary, he's not believed in monetary, but he would be believed in capital.
Capital, oh, correct, right, yeah, right.
Okay.
Right, so,
In capital cases.
okay,
Okay?
money, because it's a lot to sort
Okay?
of keep
So the
together.
logic of this is a minor sinner is a major sinner. And this one says that a major sinner
Might not be right.
is not, no, or let's do the other one. A minor sinner.
Mine isn't not always,
Is-
probably.
A minor sinner minor?
OR, OR.
ER?
No,
Yeah,
OR.
and-
ER is the
and-
one who's underground.
Thank you.
OR.
OR is under 18.
I just thought of minor coming from minimum and maximum. Min, mean, little.
Yeah, but you still don't have.
No, it was
the
a spelling issue. I just didn't know what "er" is spelled
no,
like.
No, just
All right, so Rabbi Meir
No, okay.
says an Eid Zomen is never ever believed because a minor sinner is also a major sinner. If you sin in a minor case, you're going to sin in a major case. Rabbi Yossi says an Eid Zomen in a capital case is never ever believed, but in a money case, he would be believed in a capital case because a minor sinner is still believed in major cases. Right? A minor sinner does not automatically lose his credibility in a major case because he might be like 50 cents, I'm going to lie, but I'm not going to cause this guy's life.
And going to Rabba and.
Okay,
which
now-
one is relative to Rabba?
Okay, so
And-
now we're
and-
going to say, question. Nema. Nema Abai ka Rabbi Meir. And then we're going to say,
Rabba, yeah,
we're going to say,
I'm thinking.
Abaye
And Rava's the other one. The more
Ra-
easy
Rava.
going one.
and Rava, question mark.
Which one?
Why? Abaye agrees with Rabbi Meir because of this principle,
Right.
and Rava agrees with Rabbi Yossi because of this principle. Okay? Mikula l'chumer lo amrina. The Gemara explains that both opinions in the Baraita may in fact occur with Rava. Okay? Because remember, we had Rava sometimes agreed with Abaye. So now it's going to come in and say, if Rava is Rabbi Yossi, he sometimes agrees with Rabbi Meir. Right? So Rava is always going to be a +1 guy. Rava and Abaye, but with a difference.
Right. So this is capital and monetary. The other one was kashrut and money. And so kashrut is less. So it's a little bit off.
Yeah, well, they solved it with, are you ticking off the Torah or are you doing something because of your drives?
But both of these are still of a lesser.
They both agreed that a person who does it from his drives is
Right.
not kosher,
Right.
and they
That's true.
disagreed about the case
That's
of
underlying.
the Torah,
Right.
right? So Abaye or Rava would, again, so that's the thing, where they would agree on one case. Notice Rabbi Meir would say that this guy is, Yossi would say this guy, in a capital case, is never believed. So he agrees with him on half the time. But in the capital case about the money case liar about the capital case, he does not agree. So there's a case where he doesn't agree. So they overlap a lot. So that's what they're trying to do. All right, so, lo. The Gemara says, no. Aliba de Rabbi Yossi, kule alma lo plige. Rabbi Yossi's opinion all agrees that that he can't testify. So that's what I just said. So the guy who eats nevelot, b'te'avon, out of his desires, everyone agrees he can't testify. So Abaye certainly does not follow Rabbi Yossi, right? Where Rabbi Yossi says there's two different kinds of cases. Ki plige aliba de Rabbi Meir. So are Abaye and Rava disagreeing about Rabbi Yossi? No, because Abaye doesn't apply to Rabbi Yossi. Are Abaye and Rava disagreeing with Rabbi Meir? All right. Abaye ka Rabbi Meir. You say Abaye is like Rabbi Meir, right? Which we've got as previously stated. But Rava, ad kan lo kama Rabbi Meir hatam ela gabe eid zomem de mamon. So far, Rabbi Meir has stated there, the one doing the less grievous sin, is suspected of committing the more grievous sin, right? Only regarding a zomem witness in a monetary case. Dera l'shamayim v'ra l'briut, because he's sinful to God and sinful to mankind. So that's how they're going to make that other case. He's doing it to people or doing it to God as a minor and a major. Aval hacha, here, de ra l'shmayim ve'en ra l'briut, here there's sinful to God but not sinful to mankind. Lo, you couldn't make the argument. So, why? So the one point of view is going to say that Rabbah and Abaye looks just like Yossi and Meir. And the way you're going to say that it doesn't play out that way is you're going to say qualitatively the case of ticking off the Torah and eating nevelot, because it's involving God in one of those cases, Rava might be thinking differently than here, where it's only involving people. In other words, the Gemara found a way to make this case, case B, case A, not equal. So even though it looks like they're parallel, there's a quality to the cases that's different. And so no, Rava's logic over there is not like Rava's logic here. Even though it looks like he's coming up with parallel rulings, it's not for parallel logic.
So it feels like it's more important to be with man to man than man to God? Or in other words, if you do something wrong to God, to take God's name in vain or something, or not keep to the rules. It's not that you're taking something from a person. In other words, is the level of wrongdoing higher when you do deal man to man?
The level of offense is higher man to man because men can't take it as well as God can. When you're eating the nevelot, I'm not hurting you, but I am sinning against God.
Right. That's
And when I'm ticking off the Torah or ticking off the person, I'm just doing an anger thing. I'm really doing it to hurt the people around me.
in a way. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the claim. All right. Now, the hilchata kevate de Abaye, and the halacha follows Abaye. But v'hat itotav, but it was tiyuvta. Ha he Rabbi Yossi he. Abaye follows the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. So at the end of this little sugya, and it says, and the halacha is Rabbi Abaye, woohoo! And then we immediately say, wait a minute! But the last sugya, like just 10 lines ago, said that he had been rejected. And the answer is that the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi when Abaye and Yossi agree, then that's the halacha.
How do we get there?
right?
I'm glad
Which
you
is a
asked for a
problem
diagram.
because at the beginning of the sugya, somebody had ruled according to Rava. Remember that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So we had a case where Rava had been ruled, and they said you can't do that because of Abaye. And then we had a thing where Abaye had been rejected, and then we made Abaye and Rava like this case, which has some overlap when people agree, and therefore you could have the person say, you can't rule like Rava, you have to rule like Abaye, but you can't do that because he was rejected unless it's a case where they overlap. Which winds up really just being Rabbi Yossi. Halachaka Rabbi Yossi. And when Abaye agrees with him, good for you. Okay? And maybe it was the alternative ruling of Rava that was being rejected. His reasoning about this minor, major, human, and divine. Okay? So, that's all a little, but we're not done. We're not done. V'tevu nami Rabbi Yossi. Even granted the Baraita follows Rabbi Yossi, which we've said, we think that the Baraita is telling us that Rabbi Yossi gets the halacha. Rabbi Meir over Rabbi Yossi, halacha ka Rabbi Yossi, because you have a general principle, by the way, that when Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi argue, Rabbi Yossi always wins. It's a general principle. Then how can you rule according to Abaye, who seems to be like Rabbi Meir?
Absolutely.
Okay? And it's Shane Hatam, it's different there. Desam lan Tana ka Rabbi Meir. Here it's different because the Tana has formulated the Mishnah in accordance with Rabbi Meir. So that would seem to say that in the writing of this Mishnah, Rabbi Meir was put into it structurally to win this particular case. Okay? And therefore you could rule according to Rabbi Abaye because this case actually breaks the rule and Yossi doesn't get the halacha and the Mishnah Rabbi Meir does. Not convinced, personally. The Hecha Stamlan. So how can you say that the Tana did that? Right? Ke hadavar chama katal nafsha. As in the story of Bar Chama, who killed a person. And Amarle Reish Galuta Larav Abba Bar Yaakov. And the Reish Galuta said to, that's the head of the Jews in the legal system, said to Rav Abba Bar Yaakov, Polk Ayin go and investigate the matter. If it shows that Bar Chama definitely killed, then gouge out his eyes. Okay, right? The note says they didn't have death penalty in those days. Atu tre sahade asahidu be de vadai katal, and two witnesses came and testified he had absolutely, definitely killed this guy. Azal ihu aite tre sahade asahidu be bechad mehanach. And then he went and brought two other witnesses who testified against one of these witnesses. V'chad amar kamai didi ganav kaba de chushla. And one of the witnesses said, in my presence I saw him steal a kav of shelled barley. V'chad amar kamai didi ganav. And the other said, in my presence I saw him steal what? Kata de vortia, spear handle. And Amarle, Abba said to Bar Chama, my da'atach, so what's your intention? Ka Rabbi Meir, and that's to disqualify him in a capital case according to Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Meir for Rabbi Yossi, halacha ka Rabbi Yossi. And with Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi ha'amar huzam bedine mamonot kasher lidine nafshot, because Rabbi Yossi said whoever is disqualified in a monetary case is still kosher in a capital case. All right, so let's run that. So basically, everything that we've done in the last hour is a setup to understand this story. All the components of all the other stuff are present in this one story, and we're 5 minutes over, so I can't do it.
And
All right? So next time, we're going to do the story, and we're going to say, what are the facts of the case? Right? It's going to be like law class. What are the facts of the case in the story, and what are the rulings that we've learned that apply to those facts? All right? So it's a capital case, and the guy is going to bring witnesses who are going to disqualify witnesses, but going to disqualify the witnesses based on minor offenses they've done in the past to try to disqualify them from the capital case in front of us. Okay? That's what's going to be in play next week. It doesn't always have a neat ending for us.
I will be away, so I'll follow you online.
All right.
And I'll be away just next week.